Hello, AP Worlders, and welcome to the development and codification of religious and cultural traditions. Here's a map today of the world, and it shows where or what religion is the dominant religion in those certain areas. But almost all of these religions began during this classical era that we're studying. And as the states and empires increased in size and contacts between regions multiplied, people transformed their religious and cultural systems. Religious and belief systems provided a social bond and an ethical code to live by. All right, so that's important. These religions, I'll say it again, religions and belief systems provided a social bond with an ethical code to live by. These shared beliefs also influenced and reinforce political, economic, and occupational stratification. All right, so those social hierarchies, whether it was political social hierarchies or economic social hierarchies, they were all reinforced by these belief systems and religions. All right, so those two things are important. Make sure you guys have that. Religious and political authority often merged as rulers. Some of them who considered them divine rulers used religion along with military and legal structures to justify their rule and ensure its continuation. All right, so people would not argue with the leaders because they believed or had the people to believe that they were placed in power because of the gods. Right, they had religious reasons to be there. Religions and belief systems also generated conflict, partly because beliefs and practices varied greatly with and among societies. In the several centuries surrounding 500 BCE, more or less simultaneously in China, India, the Middle East, and Greece, there emerged cultural traditions that have spread widely, as you can see from this map, how they spread from where they first started, and persisted to today, and they have shaped the values and outlooks of most people throughout time. There were a number of cultural differences. Chinese and Greek thinkers focused more on the affairs of the world. Indian, Persian, and Jewish intellectuals explored more the unseen realm of the relationship of gods or gods to human life and what happens after death. All were an alternative to the earlier polytheistic people from the time period before, from the Foundations era in the hunters and gatherers. First area we're going to look at is China. In China, there was a dynasty there which was called the Zhou dynasty, all right, which is spelled here. And about the time they came into power, the notion of mandate of heaven was already in place. The mandate of heaven is an ancient Chinese belief or theory that emperors had the right to rule based on the gods. It followed a cycle. A new dynasty would form, everything in the empire would go well, then the government would become corrupt. Then a natural disaster or a famine would happen. People would believe that was a sign from the gods that the rulers had lost their mandate or right to rule. Then there would be a revolt by the people, and they would be overthrown by a new dynasty. So the Zhou dynasty, or the Chou dynasty, lost their power, and then China went through an era of warring periods. All right, so there was a bunch of people fighting for control. And the Chinese thinkers started to consider how order might be restored. And the Chinese thinkers came up with three ways that order could be restored. They are legalism, Confucianism, and Taoism. All right, the first one we're going to talk about is legalism. Legalism believed that rulers or laws need to be clearly spelled out and strictly enforced through a system of rewards and punishments. If punishments are heavy, people won't commit crimes. They believed most people were stupid and short-sighted. The Qin dynasty was able to gain control with the harsh tactics, but they were short-lived due to their legalism. Hence this picture here, legalism, where it's showing a harsh ruler. The next one is Confucianism, which was founded by Confucius. After after the Qin dynasty would collapse, the Han dynasty and all future dynasties would use Confucianism as their basis. Confucius believes to keep order not by laws and punishment, by setting a moral example of the superiors. And they believed in having relationships, the 5 big relationships: father to son, husband to wife, older sibling to younger sibling, and ruler to subject. And if the superior person in each relationship behaved with sincerity, then the inferior party would fall in line. So if you saw the people who were above you acted morally right, then you would do the same. Confucian emphasized education as the key to having moral betterment. Confucianism became the central element of the education system, where students would take exams to hold government positions. One key thing to know for Confucianism is the term filial piety, and that's the idea of honoring of one's ancestors and parents. Confucianism believed in a rigid patriarchal society. The last belief system for China that we're going to discuss now is Taoism, all right, represented with those 2 things. Taoist, the third thought in China, was founded by Lao Tse, which is spelled right here. And it was counter to Confucianism. They felt education made things worse. All right, they felt people should do as little as possible. They wanted to withdraw back to the world of nature and encourage people being individualistic and spontaneous. Taoists believed in the Tao, which is known as the way of the nature or the path. They thought you need to give up on learning, and if you did, that would put an end to your troubles. I know some of you are probably saying, that's true. If you give up on learning, then you wouldn't have to go to school. Now we're going to shift to India with their system, which was called Hinduism. There was no historical founder, but it would grow over the many centuries. It served to incorporate into Indian society the many diverse peoples who migrated into or invaded the South Asian peninsula. What you're going to learn later on is that South Asia during this time wasn't going to be one big ruling area, right? It was going to be kind of like city-states and things like that. So this is what's going to connect those people, this religion, this belief system, Hinduism. So it was a wide, diverse group of people, so they had to come up with a way to kind of connect them and keep order. There was a set of widely recognized texts. They were called the Vedas and Upanishads. Hinduism followed the patriarchal society, but upper-class women did have greater opportunities. A central concept of Hinduism have persisted into modern times. Fundamental assertion is the individual human soul. A fundamental assertion of Hinduism is the individual human soul should not want for wealth, power, or social position. And they believe that enlightenment comes after you free yourself from those earthly desires of wealth and power and social status. They believe you continue to be reincarnated until you reach that enlightenment. So until you give up that want for those things, you're not going to reach enlightenment. And you're going to keep being reincarnated or reborn until you reach that, or until you free yourself of those desires. All right, and so depending on your actions, which is called karma, you will be born into different positions in the caste system. All right, so this is what kept order in India, was this caste system. All right, these were your rankings. The untouchables would be the lowest. And so if you were born an untouchable, then the belief was that you had bad karma or actions in your former life. All right, and so you're being punished for your former life by thou being in this bottle. Or the same with if you were in one of these top caste groups, then that meant that you had good karma in your previous life. And so Hinduism served as a way to legitimize this caste system and keep order with all these different groups that were moving into South Asia. Here's a look at how to spell those 2 words if you didn't know, reincarnate and karma. Now, the caste system is something that still is being dealt with today. It's mostly illegal in India, but a lot of these traditions still persist today with the caste system. Our last religion for today is Buddhism. And about the same time as Hinduism developed, Buddhism was developed. And the founder for Buddhism is Siddhartha Gautama. I'll write his name. Buddhism teaches about suffering and the end of suffering. All right. Buddhists believe suffering derived from your desire or craving for individual fulfillment. The cure is living a modest and moral life combined with meditation and practice. All right, so he's saying basically that we suffer because we seek to have money and fame and things like that, and that we should not want those things. All right, that would be the cure for suffering. So if you no longer want earthly possessions or things like that, you will be cured of this suffering. And those who follow the Buddhist path will achieve enlightenment or nirvana. So once you free yourself of wanting those things, you meditate, and you're free from suffering, then you're going to achieve enlightenment. So it reflects some of the Hindu teachings, such as not wanting earthly possessions, also karma and rebirth, right? So you're going to be reborn until you achieve enlightenment, meditation, and final release from the cycle of rebirth. Other parts challenge Hindu thinking, all right, such as the inequalities of the caste system. So many people at the bottom of the caste system would follow Buddhism or accept Buddhism because they would be happy about not having the social inequalities. Buddhism was an egalitarian, or Buddhism's egalitarian message appealed especially to the lower caste groups and to women. All right, so that's all for these first set of religions. All right, next time we'll learn about the religions or belief systems of the Middle East.